Hello, Assalamu alaikum. In this video, we will understand about the saliva secretion physiology. So, how secretion of the saliva from the oral cavity will occur. So, the secretion is the process of releasing substance from a cell or gland. So, the glandular structure which that is produce the saliva exocrinally, not endo but exocrinally. It means on the surface of the skin, for example, interoral cavity. This is the submandibular salivary gland and the sublingual gland and parotid gland and submandibular gland. But we will understand with a separate diagram to understand well. But just understand about know the content of the saliva. What is the saliva? So the primary saliva secretion before modification to secondary saliva, and that is important for the digestion in the oral cavity to become a bolus by mastication. So the sodium chloride content is progressively lowered by reabsorption in the ducts, and that is why the low sodium chloride part, the potassium and hydrogen bicarbonate content is increased by ducts by the reabsorption and the secretion. Saliva is alkaline, prevent to acid producing bacteria to cure dental health. If the saliva will be less, so the dental health problem can be occur. Saliva is majorly contain 95% water. So this is the hypotonic condition. Saliva contain potassium more or less than as compared to the sodium chloride, and thiolin, alpha amylase, lingual lipase used for the lipid digestion, and the lysozyme, the immunoglobulin A, and the lactoferrin. So remember, this is the amylase used for the amylose digestion, while the lipase used for the lipid digestion. This is the structure. Let's understand about how the nerve innervate to the creation of saliva. This is a sublingual and submandibular, the sublingual gland and the submandibular gland. And in this way, here is the parotid gland is also present, and this is the higher brain center. This higher brain center is basically important for the secretion of saliva. How it's possible? This is the pons and medulla, it's the brain stem part. Whenever you will eat, before the eat, the smell, taste, touch, mastication, nausea and vomiting also, which that will lead to produce saliva, is known as the salivation process. The smell and taste will target the smell into the nasal cavity, while the taste will intact with the tongue. In this way, the sensory nerves, afferent vagal nerve, which vagal nerve 10, which that go into the higher brain center, and it will passing from the brainstem to the medulla, and this is the cranial brain, cranial. So it means it is afferent cranial. In this way, the higher brain center will transmit the nerve impulse toward the salivary center in the pons and medulla, between the pons and medulla. In this way, here you can see this. Basically you can understand the salivary center only. So this is not the liquid video, it is consolidated video, the solid video. So a sympathetic and parasympathetic activation is the efferent nerve. This efferent nerve is the glossopharyngeal and the vagal nerve, which that transmit the signal back toward the salivary gland to secrete the saliva. Let's understand about the saliva. The saliva is the glandular structure contain of many acinar cells. These many acinar cells contain a single cell acinar cell. So this is the acinar, which that contain acinar cell, contain the M3 receptor, the muscarinic receptor 3, as a parasympathetic, which that will lead to secrete after the parasympathetic adrenergic nerve, or to produce acetylcholine. And in this way the basically the in this way the myoepithelial cell are present, which that will contract to release completely, and in this way it can be immunoglobulin, and the reabsorption of the chloride into the back, while the sodium also, but the potassium will increase as well as immunoglobulin and the hydrogen bicarbonate, and secretion will more, and this will lead to hypotonic condition. This secondary saliva will produce. This secondary saliva is basically no saliva production will occur if the autoantibodies will develop. This autoantibodies due to the autoimmune disorder. That autoimmune disorder is the Sjogren syndrome, which that will not produce the saliva, so it means a dry mouth. We will also understand with that detail, but first just understand about this overview. So we will understand what is the Sjogren or Sjogren syndrome. Let's understand about the sympathetic innervation. Why is the sympathetic? Sympathetic means the fight and flight response, but this is the less than the parasympathetic nerve innervation, because the parasympathetic is very important for the secretion of saliva, but the sympathetic will work with the norepinephrine release and will bind with the epinephrine receptor, and in this way it will secrete rather than the acetylcholine. So in this way the secretion of the saliva, it is due to the some reason like the vomiting. It will also produce, because the vomiting also occur due to the sympathetic nervous system. Remember, some people say, but it is some people not say, but it is reality. The sympathetic nervous system innervate. So the no autoantibodies if the normal. So the IgA antibody is normal. So the autoantibody production to inhibit the production of saliva cause Sjogren syndrome. Regulation of the saliva secretion is the parasympathetic nervous system more than the sympathetic nervous system. Anyhow, the parasympathetic regulation we will understand that is importantly the smell, taste, mastication, nausea, and conditioned reflex. What that means, the conditioned reflex? Conditioned reflex mean the salivation due to the ringing or due to the primary stimulus, not secondary. So the secondary stimulus is the food, but the primary is the some object which that will create the saliva as a learning. So the facial nerve, cranial nerve, which that as well as glossopharyngeal nerve is involved, will lead to release of acetylcholine and the muscarinic receptor of acinar cell. Information of the extra information: the average adult secretes 1 liter of saliva per day, and 25 ml is secreted by parotid gland, and 700 ml by the submandibular gland, and 50 ml by the sublingual gland. Remember that things importantly. Composition of the saliva is, again I am repeating, the potassium, sodium chloride as a salt, thiolin, alpha amylase and lipase used for the digestion of the amylose as well as lipid, and lysozymes as an antibacterial enzyme, and IgA and lactoferrin. Anyhow, Sjogren syndrome, the Sjogren syndrome is the autoimmune disease causing the many problem like the keratoconjunctivitis, Zika, and tearless, and xerostomia, and dry mouth. It is also the associated the rheumatoid arthritis 50%, lupus arthritis, lupus erythematosus, and the lymphocytes and plasma cell infiltrate and secretion by gland and cause injury. Dry itchy eyes, dry mouth, swell, and dysphagia as well as pain due to the Sjogren syndrome. Anyhow, let's understand about the mechanism of the releasing of the saliva. This is the salivary globule, and this increase the volume due to the intake of the water due to the acetylcholine for the parasympathetic nerve innervation with the point with the muscarinic receptor 3, and will lead to activate the G couple protein, and this G couple protein receptor to activate the alpha beta, and in this way the alpha contain GDP to activate the G into the GTP, and in this way the phospholipase C will activate the phosphoinositide diphosphate, will lead to activate the PIP3 and DAG. This PIP3 and DAG, which that will lead to endoplasmic reticulum, which that is basically the calcium will lead to help to exocytosis of these water content due to the increase of the volume and the increase of the oxygen and the bicarbonate increase. And in this way also the muscarinic receptor 3 will bind with the myoepithelium to activate the kallikrein and the bradykinin to the vasodilation and improve the blood flow for oxygen supply. In this way increase the oxygen supply into the acinar cell and improve the blood flow for oxygen supply and the contract myoepithelial cell. But on the other hand, for sympathetic nervous innervation is a beta 2 adrenergic receptor, which that bind with the epinephrine, and in this way activate. And in this way, the ATP and GTP will activate to the GTP alpha containing, and in this way the cyclic AMP will increase, will lead to adenylate cyclase, and in this way the calcium will increase, will lead to vesicle exocytosis by the same mechanism. So it's not any problem. The Sjogren syndrome treatment through anticholinergic drug, non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drug, and the NSAIDs, and the hydrochloroquine, and the anti-malarial drug, and the immunosuppressant like the methotrexate and the cyclosporine. I hope you make sense about this. This video was about the saliva secretion physiology. We have discussed about the mechanism of secretion of the saliva as well as the acinar cells, the glandular structure of the saliva producing saliva, and in this we have also discussed about the nerve innervation for the saliva stimulation, and we have also discussed about the complication, the disease Sjogren syndrome.